rise of international organizations before 1919. So our debate is based on book. Its title is International Organization in World Politics. I think YouTube is not working. Slides? Anybody can see my slides? It is not working. Yes. Yes, there is some problem with the internet. No, it's working. It's working. Yes. So I was saying this international organization in world politics. It has three authors. One is David Armstrong. The other is Lorna Lloyd. The third is not. Just a second. Just a second. Rise of the international organization. Now it is fetching data. Can't load attachment. Your hotspot is doing well. कौन सी कंपनी है? Zone. अच्छा.
सर अभी हम इसी के हॉटस्पॉट से कनेक्ट चाहिए.
Okay. So yes, I was saying that today's discussion is based on the book International Organization in World Politics. It is authored by three scholars: David Armstrong, Lorna Lloyd, John Redmond, and it is published by Red Globe Press. So today we are discussing its first chapter, rather first part of the first chapter. The Rise of International Organization is the first chapter, and its first subheading is the development of international organizations before 1919. So the authors say that three things are needed. Three things are needed for an intergovernmental organization to exist. As you remember, yesterday we talked about IGOs and NGOs, international intergovernmental organizations and international non-governmental organizations. So now the discussion is starting with the IGOs, intergovernmental organizations. So the authors say three things are required for an intergovernmental organization or an IGO to exist. What are those three things? Number one, there must be independent political communities. Independent political communities. So, do you know any example of independent political communities? Which are the independent political communities? States. States. States are sovereign. Okay? So, which are the independent political communities? States. So, this is the first requirement for an intergovernmental organization to exist. What is the second requirement? These communities must agree on rules to guide their relations. These communities must agree on rules to guide their relations. After all, if there is an intergovernmental organization, it deals with relations of those states which are its members. Getting it? समझ आ रही है? देखिए, एक जो इंटर गवर्नमेंटल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन होती है, वो जो मुल्क मिल के उसको बनाते हैं, वो उनके रिलेशन को डील कर रही है ना, आईजीओ। वो आईजीओ उन रियासतों के रिलेशंस को डील कर रही है, ठीक है। अच्छा, वो रिलेशंस कैसे होंगे और वो जो इंटर गवर्नमेंटल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन होगी वो किस हद तक असर करेगी उनके ताल्लुकात के ऊपर, ज़रूरी है कि पहले वो जो कंट्रीज़ हैं, मेंबर स्टेट्स हैं, वो उस पर एग्री करें उन रूल्स के ऊपर। गॉट इट? दिस इज द सेकंड रिक्वायरमेंट फॉर एन आईजीओ टू एग्जिस्ट. These communities, these states must agree on rules to guide their relations. Third, what is the third requirement for an IGO to exist? There must be a formal structure to apply the rules. There must be a formal structure. There has to be a body. There is some secretary general, there is some president, there are some finance secretary, there are some other officers, directors, okay? So then this intergovernmental organization works and functions. So this is the third requirement. There must be a formal structure to apply the rules and enforce the rules. Apply and enforce the rules. If the first is missing, okay, these are the three requirements. If the first requirement is missing, the system would look like one empire or power controlling others. Okay? अगर आज़ाद रियासतें नहीं हैं तो उनमें से जो तकड़ी होगी, सबसे पावरफुल होगी, वो उनको डंडे से चला रही होगी, ठीक है ना? तो फिर वो इंटर गवर्नमेंटल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन नहीं होगी। जैसे एक ज़माना था कॉलोनियलिज्म का, यू नो, colonial powers like the United Kingdom, the Great Britain, and France and other European countries and America, they colonized many states. So those states were no more independent political communities. Okay, if the second is missing, if the second requirement is missing, if the independent political communities do not agree on the rules, what will happen? Order between states would only come by chance and informal talks. So order can be by chance only, okay? There can be no IGO as such. If the third is missing, what was the third requirement? Formal structure. If formal structures are missing, Rules would be enforced only by diplomacy, not by a set body. Then the states will have to depend on their diplomats, formal diplomats, routine diplomats. So these three conditions are the core features of an IGO. These are the three core features of an intergovernmental organization. IGOs can be classified in many ways. There can be several classifications of intergovernmental organizations, like by members or by function. Okay? IGOs can be classified in many ways. For example, they can be classified by members, how many members they have or who are their members. They can also be classified by their function. Okay? Either they are political, either they are economic, okay, or they are environmental like that. Analysts say many early examples existed before today's IGOs, like the United Nations. So experts, the scholars, they say, although we know today there are many IGOs, United Nations, NATO, ASEAN, SAARC, SCO, there are many, the African Union, European Union, these are modern IGOs. But the experts tell that before these modern IGOs, in fact, IGOs have existed in the past. Some call the Amphictyonic Council of Ancient Greece the first IGO. Which was the first IGO in the world? According to this reading, Amphictyonic Council. Okay, I can share the slides with you on your WhatsApp group. Will it help? Will it help?
Yes.
Okay, I share it. I'm sharing the slides with you on your WhatsApp group. So even if the internet is weak, I hope it will work. You are fifth regular, eh? Okay. Yes. You can access on WhatsApp. The Okay. So I am on slide number 15. I am on slide number 15. Okay, I was saying that the authors say that according to some experts of international organizations, the Amphictyonic Council of Ancient Greece is considered to be the first intergovernmental organization. Its main job was to help Greek city-states worship together. So it dealt with the religious matters. That IGO in the ancient Greece, it did not deal with the political matters, it did not deal with the security matters, rather, as such. Basically, it dealt with the religious matters. So its main job was to help Greek city-states worship together and protect the shrine at Delphi. So there was a great shrine in Greece at Delphi. So this IGO, it would protect it. It showed Greek cultural unity, not real management of independent states. So it was a symbol of their cultural unity, unity of their religion. Okay. Members took an oath to reduce harm during wars. So it was another part, another dimension of this Amphictyonic Council. What was this? it related to wars. So the member states took an oath to reduce harm during wars, but this oath was mostly ignored. So they took oath that they will reduce the harm, but when actually war started, they did not bother to take into consideration their oath. So they would do whatever they would like to do in the war. Other ancient societies also had rules to bring some order in trade, order in war, and order on borders, and water rights. So, so they had some rules which can be said interstate rules or international rules. In places like China or Egypt, rules were part of strong empire control. Though Egypt sometimes allowed trade with independent nations. So some of the empires, some of the states in the past, they would not like international trade. They would not allow their citizens to trade with others. It was protectionism. So in India, rules and religious practices guided relations between states. Rules and religious practices guided relations between states in India, Indian states. You know, there are hundreds of princely states in India, in the subcontinent. And those rules were based on shared culture. But in all these cases, there was no permanent body to enforce or manage these rules. There was no permanent body in India to enforce these rules, to, to manage these rules. And medieval Christendom looks more like our idea of an IGO. Medieval Christendom. You know, Christendom, the Christian world. Christian world is known as the Christendom. And the crescent, the Muslim world is known as the crescent. So the Christendom and the crescent, the Christian world and the Muslim world. Fine? So medieval Christendom, the Christian world, the Christian countries and societies in the medieval period. Okay? It looked more like our idea of an IGO, intergovernmental organization. It had ecumenical councils. Ecumenical means which is related to church. Ecumenical is related to church. So the medieval Christendom, it had ecumenical councils. So the churches had their councils. Chivalric orders. Chivalry, you know chivalry? कुछ लोग जो बड़े मतलब बहादुर कवि जर्री जवान होते हैं और वो जंगे शंगे करते हैं और कुछ अच्छे काम भी करते हैं या बाज़ का वो डाका शाका भी डालते हैं तो ये शिवलरिक या दूसरों के ऊपर धौंस जमाते हैं तो it is called chivalry. So chivalric orders, they were also there in the medieval Christendom, and wide international legal systems. So in the medieval Christendom, in the Christian world, during the medieval period, there were wide international legal systems. So they had international laws. These included courts of appeal and courts of arbitration. You know, courts of appeal, what do they do? Courts of appeal, when there is a verdict, when there is a decision by one court, the aggrieved party, it can appeal the court to revise the decision, to revise the. अगर दो बंदों के दरमियान कोई मुकदमा चल रहा है अदालत में और फैसला एक के हक में जाता है दूसरे के खिलाफ हो जाता है, जिसके हक में हो गया वो तो खुश है, जिसके खिलाफ हो गया उसको हक हासिल है कि वो अदालत में जाके अपील कर सकता है. the other party, the aggrieved party has the right to appeal, ताकि अदालत दोबारा देखे कि केस में कहीं कोई गलती तो नहीं हो गई या कोई गुंजाइश निकलती है, उसको जो सज़ा मिल गई है वो कहीं उससे बच सकता है कि नहीं बच सकता है, इसको कहते हैं अपील. ओके. सिमिलरली देयर आर कोर्ट्स ऑफ आर्बिट्रेशन. यू नो आर्बिट्रेशन? आर्बिट्रेशन होती है सालसी, ठीक है. आर्बिट्रेशन, कोर्ट्स ऑफ आर्बिट्रेशन ये करती हैं कि अब देखिए जो स्टेट्स हैं खुद मुख्तार हैं ना, वो किसी कानून की पाबंदी नहीं है. तो बाज़ का तो उनका कोई तनाज़ा शनाज़ा हो जाता है तो उनकी मर्ज़ी होती है कि उसको किस तरह से हल करना चाहते हैं, या हल करना भी चाहते हैं कि नहीं करना चाहते. ठीक है. वो अक्सर तनाज़ा यूँ का तूँ चलते रहते हैं, साल हाँ साल से दहाइयों के साथ, जैसे कश्मीर चल रहा है. अच्छा, बाज़ का तो वो जंग करते हैं उस मसले को हल करने के लिए, तो उससे मसाइल और बढ़ जाते हैं. अच्छा, पुरअमन तरीके जो हैं, पीसफुल वेज to solve the conflicts, to resolve the conflicts, it is one of the peaceful ways. एक तरीका ये है कि वो दोनों मुल्कों के जो सफ़ीर हैं या हुक्मरान हैं वो मिल बैठें, मेज़ के ऊपर बातचीत करें, मुज़ाकरात करें और मसले को हल निकाल लें. लेकिन अगर वो इसमें नाकाम हो जाते हैं, बातचीत करते हैं, मसले का हल नहीं निकलता, वो फिर कहते हैं अच्छा हम कोई सालिस मुकर्रर कर लेते हैं जिस पे दोनों मुत्तफ़िक हों, एग्री हों, आर्बिट्रेशन के लिए चले जाते हैं. तो फिर लेकिन पहले ज़रूरी है कि इस बात पे एग्री करें कि वो आर्बिट्रेटर जो होगा उसका फ़ैसला जो भी होगा वो उनको मंजूर होगा. ठीक है. इसको क्या कहते हैं? आर्बिट्रेशन. इसको क्या कहते हैं? आर्बिट्रेशन. क्या आपको पता है कि पाकिस्तान और इंडिया ने कभी आर्बिट्रेशन के ज़रिए अपने मसाइल हल किए? हाँ, क्या मिसाल है? सिंध तास्मोदा, इट वाज एन आर्बिट्रेशन. इस तरह ये सिंध की तरफ जो इंडिया की पाकिस्तान की बॉर्डर है वहाँ पे भी एक इलाका है रन ऑफ कच्छ, उसके ऊपर भी आर्बिट्रेशन इन्होंने की थी और उसका बहुत थोड़ा पार्ट पाकिस्तान को मिला था और ज़्यादातर पार्ट इंडिया को मिल गया था. बट इंडिया वाज इवन देन नॉट हैप्पी, although it had to accept, it accepted, India accepted it, Pakistan accepted it, but India was not happy on that arbitration. So the authors are telling us in the medieval Christendom, in the Christian world during the medieval period, there were international laws, there were courts of arbitration, there were courts of appeal, and the priesthood acted like a large international bureaucracy. The priesthood, the priests, they acted like a large international bureaucracy. So they were organized. They had a hierarchy, you know. Even in this modern age, even today, some of the Christian sects, they have hierarchy. There is a pope who sits in Rome, okay? Then he has his cardinals. Then the cardinals have their own subordinates, and up to the church, in the priest in the church. So there is a hierarchy. Just like in our Shia sect in Islam, there is an imam, and the imam has his own deputies. Then those deputies have their own deputies, and up to the imam barga. Okay, there is an hierarchy. You know, anybody knows this? Anybody knows this? It is called hierarchy. So similarly, in the Christians, there is a hierarchy from Pope to the priest to the church. So it is an international bureaucracy. It works like an international bureaucracy. You know, a few months back, there was an election in Rome, and they chose their new Pope, and he is an American. Okay, so, but there is a problem. The authors of this book, they say there is a problem. Western Christendom was under the Pope's authority. Western Christendom, the Christian world in the West, it was under the authority of the Pope. And this makes it hard to see it as a true group of independent political communities. So it is difficult to imagine that all those states, they were really sovereign and they were independent. Our definition of an IGO needs independent communities. Our definition of IGO, as we have said, the three basic requirements for an IGO to exist. So according to those requirements, that definition, there have to be independent political communities. But the states under the Pope, they cannot be taken as sovereign independent states. So it does not fully fit here. That model does not fully fit in the model of the IGO. True IGOs started to appear in the 19th century. True IGOs, which fulfill the requirements, the three requirements of the definition of an IGO. They emerged when? In the 19th century. This happened alongside the industrial and technological revolutions. So in the 19th centuries, an industrial revolution took place, a technological revolution took place, and alongside those revolutions, IGOs, true IGOs, they appeared, they emerged. Big changes in politics, in economy, and society created a good environment for IGOs. So when there were these revolutions, scientific revolutions, the industrial revolution, the technological revolutions, they built up an environment where intergovernmental organizations could flourish. So they were created. These changes also shaped what IGOs focused on. So now the focus of these IGOs, it was also shaped, it was also influenced by the new changes, the new revolutions. The clearest impact was seen in trade and international communications. The clearest impact was seen in trade and international communications. The Industrial Revolution increased production on a large scale. Industrial Revolution increased production of goods in a large scale. On a large scale, this caused a big rise in trade. So when things were being produced in huge quantities, accordingly the trade also increased. And the use of steam made trade much faster. Steam engine was invented. Steam engine, okay? And the steam engine brought a revolution in transportation. The faster transportation became possible, and transportation at a mass level became possible, when particularly with the invention of railway lines. And ships also got steam engines. So bigger ships now, the bigger ships could be built and they could move in the oceans. So as European imperialism spread, European colonialism and European imperialism, if you know this, as it spread, a complex world economic network was formed. Complex economic network at the world level, at the global level, it was formed. Trade started taking place between countries and between the continents at a faster pace. Influenced international institutions in four ways. This growth of industrial goods, and this growth of trade, and this growth of intergovernmental organizations influence international institutions in four ways. Number one, more international dealings meant more chances for disputes. More international dealings. When there was more and more trade with other countries, there was more and more interaction with the customers, with the traders, okay, with the producers, with the factory owners. So it means there were more chances of disputes, conflicts. Even small issues could create conflicts. Small issues. Because of this, in the 19th century, states started to accept international arbitration. No, because there was huge trade was taking place, had started, the states could not afford war as such. Now they started to resort to arbitration. So arbitration is a peaceful way of resolving the conflicts. Arbitration was used when disputes did not touch matters of honor or vital interests. Even in this environment of growth and trade, the countries, the states would go to war when it was a matter of honor, when the vital interests were at stake, when the vital interests were threatened, so they would wage war. But generally, in minor issues, the states started avoiding war so that the trade continues, the production of things continues. Secondly, the second way these changes influence the world, the world institutions. Countries needed agreed rules and common standards. So common standards were required. You know, some of the standards they were given by the United Kingdom, by the Britain. For example, you might have studied in school life during your school years that litter, litter. Okay, who made this one litter? I think they were British or maybe Germans or French, some Europeans. So if this is the quantity of a liquid, it would be liter. Similarly, a kilogram and 1 gram, they are also the standards. So they do not exist since the beginning of the humans. They were invented, they were made by some states, but by some humans, by some individuals, some scientists, very lately, a few centuries ago. So okay, so similarly, 1 meter, okay, 1 inch. How much 1 inch would be lengthy? It was decided. 1 centimeter. These are the standards. Millimeter, centimeter. So these are the standards. They were required for the industrial revolution, for measurements, and for quality control standards. You know, there is an ISO. Anybody knows ISO? What is ISO? International Standard Organization. ISO means International Standards Organization. So these were for things like patenting inventions. Patents, you know, patents, they are the rights, in fact. If you invent something, if you make something new, you get it registered in your name. So you become its owner, okay, as a scientist, as an inventor. So they are called patents. So the standards were also required for patents, setting customs duties. Now, how much tax will be levied upon a certain amount, a certain quantity of things? Okay, for this, standards were required, and fixing currency exchange rates. There were different currencies. There are different currencies, you know, and there have to be some currencies have to be exchanged. And how many dollars should be equal to how many euros? There has to be some standard. There have to be some measure. Okay. To handle such matters, public international unions were created. Public international unions were created to address these matters. By the late 19th century, standardization was spreading. Standardization was spreading by the late 19th century. And it began to cover not only technical issues, but also political ones. The standardization process, it covered technical issues and it also covered political issues. Examples include protecting workers and protecting children. Protecting children. You know, when a country says, when an international organization says that don't hire children for labor in your factories, at your homes, so it is also a political matter because it is a collective matter. The collective matters are political matters. Thirdly, you know, if you recall, if you remember, we are discussing four ways, the four ways in which revolutions influenced the international institutions. The third, the third way, states were very strict about their sovereign rights. Sovereignty. States are very touchy. States are very touchy about their sovereignty. They are very conscious that their sovereignty should stay. Their sovereignty should be safe. It should not be attacked. Okay. Do you remember when the Americans attacked Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad? So Pakistan protested, and what was the argument? Yes, the Americans have violated our sovereignty. They did not have the right, according to the international law, the Americans did not have the right to launch such an operation, military operation, in the jurisdiction, Pakistani territory, without the permission of Pakistan, government of Pakistan, but they did. So Pakistan protested, launched a protest saying that the Americans have violated our sovereignty. Okay, so if you come here, it will be better. I think your communication will stop. It is, in fact, you know, affecting my focus, my concentration. Oh, oh, is this chair not good? So you can change. You can change the chair. You bring your own chair here. Okay, okay, you come here. So when you pass on smiles and when you communicate with each other quietly, okay, it disturbs the concentration. It affects the concentration. So be attentive. Try to understand. Try to digest what is being discussed, what is being said. So, thirdly, states were very strict about their sovereign rights. This created problems for smooth international business. Okay, so when the states are sovereign, they put restrictions. Okay, to safeguard their sovereignty, to protect their sovereignty, to enforce their sovereignty. They put restrictions on their borders, on their airspace, okay, and on their land space. So a clear example was postal communication across borders. Postal communications. ये जो डाक का निज़ाम है, जब ये शुरू हुआ तो आप देखें ना कि एक खत चलेगा या एक पार्सल चलेगा, 10 मुल्कों से गुजर कर 11वें मुल्क में जाएगा, तो वो जो 10 मुल्क हैं, क्या उन्होंने आसानी से मान लिया होगा? उन्होंने कई मसाइल खड़े किए होंगे, कई आर्गूमेंट किए होंगे, कि कई उन्हें रोक दिया होगा कि नहीं, हम नहीं करने देंगे। अभी भी पाक पता है, ये कल परसों पाकिस्तान ने फिर एक्सटेंड की है डेट। जो इंडियन एयरक्राफ्ट है वो पाकिस्तान की हदूद में नहीं दाखिल हो सकता, यहाँ से नहीं गुजर सकता, ये नहीं उस यहाँ से गुजर कर आगे भी नहीं जा सकता। पता है आपको, ये हमारी सोवरेंटी का मसला है ना, हम सोवरेन हैं, हम उनको रोक सकते हैं कि पाकिस्तान की एयर स्पेस में इंडियन एयरक्राफ्ट कैन नॉट एंटर। ओके, सो सिमिलरली there are issues with other cross-border flow, cross-border movement of people, cross-border movement of goods, cross-border movement of information. कभी कभी हम पता है वो फिल्मों पे पाबंदी लगा देते हैं, वो कल्चरल मूवमेंट है ना, कल्चरल इन्फ्लुएंस है, कल्चरल फ्लो है, इंफॉर्मेशन का फ्लो है। कभी एक दूसरे मुल्कों की वेबसाइट्स और टीवी चैनल्स को हम ब्लॉक कर देते हैं, ठीक है ना, ये हमारे सोवरेंटी के मैटर्स हैं। तो इसी तरह जब ये डेवलपमेंट्स हो रही थी इंटरनेशनल लेवल के ऊपर, इंटर गवर्नमेंटल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस बन रही थी, फॉर एग्जांपल द पोस्टल यूनियन, इंटरनेशनल पोस्टल यूनियन IPU, so there were issues, there were problems. So before 1875, mail between countries was managed by many bilateral treaties. So mail, post between countries, it was generally managed by bilateral treaties. Bilateral means between two countries. Bilateral treaty is between two countries. If a treaty or agreement is between among more than two states, what is it called? Multilateral. If more than two states or countries are involved, it becomes multilateral. If it is only between two states or countries, it is bilateral. So before the IGOs, generally intergovernmental organizations, generally they are multilateral. SARC, what do you think? SARC is bilateral or multilateral? SARC is multilateral because there are more than two states which are its members. Okay, SCO. What do you think? SCO is a bilateral organization or multilateral? SCO is a multilateral organization because it has more than two members as its states. So all big intergovernmental organizations they are multilateral. All big international organizations, most of the issues between states, they were dealt with through bilateral. So each state tried to gain more financial benefits. Each state tried to gain more financial benefit from these treaties. This caused very postage rates. So they levied taxes on the postage coming from the other countries. So it would raise the price of the postage. Costs also changed depending on the route taken. So, Trump has increased the tariffs, taxes on imports from other countries. Okay, so it is one of way of earning money, collecting taxes. So costs are also changed depending on the route taken. Okay, if the route is lengthy, the cost obviously will increase. For example, a half ounce letter from the United States to Australia could cost between 5 cents and $1. It was the rate. The General Postal Union was set up in 1875. 1875 जब हम कहते हैं ये कौन सी सदी बनती है? 19th. अगरचे 18 लिखा हुआ है तो ये 18वीं सदी नहीं है, ये 19वीं सदी है, क्योंकि 1800 के बाद 72 साल भी हो गए हैं ना, 19वीं सदी है. तो 1800 से जब 1 जनवरी आ गई उसके आगे तो वो 19वीं सदी शुरू हो गई. तो ये जनरल पोस्टल यूनियन जो है ये कब कायम हुई? 19वीं सदी के आखिर में, यानी आखिरी क्वार्टर में, 1875. In 1878 it became the Universal Postal Union. पहले इसका नाम था IPU, फिर ये बन गई UPU, Universal Postal Union. The UPU brought new methods like, so when the IPU was transformed into UPU, so it introduced new methods like compulsory arbitration and majority voting. Fourthly, the big powers economies were becoming more connected. Big powers economy, even today, two largest economies in the world, they are well connected, the United States and China. So this process started centuries ago. This gave them shared interests even while they had rivalries. Large economies, that the disputes are resolved peacefully. There's no war. It is in their interest. In the 19th century, they started creating international commissions. International commissions was started to be created in the 19th century. These commissions regulated trade in certain goods like sugar. Interdependence also made some issues international. Problems that were once only national became matters of global concern. And disease control was one such issue. Several international unions were formed in the 19th century. This led to the Sanitary Convention in 1903. In 1907, the International Office of Public Hygiene was set up. It is important to remember that these steps in international organization were not easy. So there were problems in bringing up, in creating these international commissions, international organizations, international standards. None of them began smoothly. They also did not promise that bigger projects would succeed. France delayed the postal union because it feared money losses. France feared that it will face money losses, so it delayed the postal union, joining the postal union. Britain refused for years to sign a sanitary convention. It said such a step might harm its shipping interests. Sanitary councils also became places where great powers clashed. If so much conflict appeared in small matters, then progress in big matters like so you just imagine if the matters of related to sanitary, related to postage, mail, they were hard, they were difficult to agree upon. Then the matters of security, they were the most sensitive thing. So it faced the most difficulties, the big uh, resistance, huge resistance from the states when it comes to security matters. So, two important examples from the 19th century are the Concert of Europe and the International Committee of the Red Cross. So, these are the two international organizations which we will discuss in the next class. So, I would like to advise all of you to study these two organizations thoroughly so that you know the things beforehand when you come to class. So, with this, today's class comes to an end. Thank you very much.